Went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water from the water of Marah because it was bitter. Named Marah, and the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" Now, I don't want to just dive into this and start talking about the grumbling, because of course we see the grumbling, but it's, let's put our easy. It's easy to say, yeah, well, if they would just stop complaining, right? But it's breakfast, let alone water. Now, of course, they're marching through the wilderness, which actually means desert. Okay, so they're in a desert for 3 days. Live 3 days without water in the desert. So they're at the end of the rope. They are actually die. And so let's not get too hasty. So imagine, and this is crazy because they just left the Red Sea event. The Red Sea event was the most amazing thing any of these people have ever seen. The hand of God moving, parting the waters. They walk through, the waters close back up and kill the enemy. They write part of 15. They write a song and they sing it. They're singing, they're dancing, and you could almost imagine how the dancing went into this being fear for their own lives, right? Well, they should be able to at least connect ago, right? From 3 days ago. They should be able to remember that God. But when your body starts to shut down because you haven't drank any water, you don't think right. Okay? You go into autopilot. Things come up. You get cranky. All right? You get a little testy. And all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with fear, and you into survival mode to where you're not awaiting God. You're not self-consciously trying to protect your own natural response, and I think that most of us would be guilty of the same thing. A point where you say, well, yeah, God's got this, and you would all in all that He is the Alpha, is everything that you will ever need. But watching, you can say something and boom, you're in survival mode. You can see someone and you go into survival mode. Like your body at any given time, if it sees, in order to learn something from this, we have to be very observant about what goes on in our life. What goes for me, right? I say Big Mac, I just triggered how many people, right? I mean, I got that kind of power. But see, I would think at this point, in the congregation of people, situation, I'm in survival, I would want somebody to start humming the song, right? Find composure in that space. You're facing death. You're literally facing death. But at that moment, the only proper response would have been to start singing the Red Sea song. We have songs that we can sing in those moments. God has delivered all of us from many things. God has been good to you in many ways, right? He delivered me only so he could, which is foolish. God has delivered you at every turn, right? But like I said, it's good to start humming that song. What else are you going to do? Because this is the actual picture of it. You're dying, Red Sea. They had the entire Egyptian army on their back, and they had more hope then than they do here. They couldn't run back to the, because they're done for. They don't have more time. Time is actually facing death. With the Red Sea, you know you had a couple of guys that could probably swim across it. Right? There's going to be when you finally see the end of the tunnel, you finally see a lake. We're going to live. You know there's some idiots jumping headlong into that thing. All of their hope was from under them. Everything that they thought they had going for them going to die. That feeling of hopeless on top of hopeless. But somehow you're still here. You're still here. So I think that is an excellent. Oh, thanks, babe. Huh? Definitely not to a coffee shop. Excellent question. What shall we drink? I mean, what else? What other question? Shall we drink? I think it's an excellent question. The water is too bitter. Are we supposed to drink this? This must have been a sweet gum. It must have been, I don't know. This is, buy it and allow you to drink it. Probably not. I'm going to say it's a miracle, if you will. And he threw it into water, and the water became sweet. Now, what are we going to learn from this, right? See, life is filled with bitter cups. No one's exempt of the bitterness that life brings, if you will. The bitterness that we experience because of, and if you're not dealing with bitterness now, it will come. Okay, like you don't prepare yourself, you find yourself doing exactly what the Israelites. And we need to be very serious. And we talked about Friday, we talked about guarding our hearts. This is one of the ways to guard our hearts, to prepare. The experience with bitter things in life, it can go one of two experiences. A lot of you have had a lot of trauma in your life. That's why nobody's really exempt of it, are they? Trauma has been a big part of our life. The very things that should traumatize me no longer do. You're going to go through the same things that other people are going through, the same bitter things that are not with hardship. No, the difference is now, instead of it becoming a traumatic event, it actually turns into some guys out in the desert and intentionally. Would you think that I'm a little sadistic? Huh? Would you think that I'm a little... You would be very upset. These are the judgments, isn't it? Oh, we're so filled with judgments. These are horrible judgments. Is he sadistic to sending these people out 3 days without water? Does that... Huh? You see, we're very good at complaining. And it's like, yeah, you know, God's going to take me through some hard times. No, you're going to feel like that your marriage is going to die, that you're physically going to die, that you're and so coming to a point of trusting that is where we come to no choice but to trust God. Well, I guess you could have died. Or trust God. You only go up from there. And you know, people say embrace the suck. Dying. When it gets to the worst part of your journey, that's when you need to be thanking him the most. Because I'm never going to leave you nor forsake you. And in those moments, find in our hearts who God is going to be, right? And when you look back at your life, the places where you had the least, actually find the fondest. Okay? Yes, we've had traumatic experiences. Yes, walked with him. When things got bleak, you drew near. The bitter things of life, a deep desire to take the bitterness in your life and make it sweet. And make it sweet. He does it that when you look back, I mean, when I look back over my life and I see my first one of these experiences, right? That was one of my first ones. And yeah, I was like, I'll probably die. I don't. But now looking back, it was one of the most fondest experiences of my life. I don't feel God when I think about the mountaintops, the valleys. You see, we need. Can you see that God taking you to bitter places in life is grace and mercy on you? But I promise you, you'll focus on me after this, right? Take all the most bitter situations in your life and I want to make them sweet. And all of you have these right now, right? You have these situations that does have a plan. I really think he wants you to know. His plan is to make them sweet, not. And that should make you want to rejoice. It gets hard. Because you know what? You're recentering life, or he's recentering himself, if you will. Right? He's going to be everything that you want in life is in the person of Jesus Christ. Everything. Satisfaction. He is the sweet water that we are all looking for. Right? He says when you are parched, when you don't know which way to go, really he will come and he will straighten it out for you. It's his desire. Now, why didn't God make it sweet before they showed up? What's the lesson in this? You get anything out of it? Huh? Can you see how God was trying to teach Israel something? They're a brand new nation. Okay? They have become their own nation. Now God is saying, you know what? You're in early on. I want to show you that I am your God. I will provide. I will sustain. I will take care of you. Right? You see God's mercy. Saying, if you will diligently to his commandments and keep his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer. He says, I am your healer. So they introduce himself. Takes them, you ever go to a doctor's office and sit there and wait for a friggin' hour? But anyway, you go to a doctor, you sit there forever, and God comes in and he says, I want you to take this event and I want this to cement in your heart and in your mind that I am your doctor. What happens in your life is when you go through these bitter times, you walk out and there's something. I can tell you that God is a healer, but you don't know what kind of healer he is until difficult times so that we can actually be introduced to who he is, right? He says to Moses, I am the great I am, right? Every life that you could ever need, he is that. But it's going to suck for you when you need to be introduced to me from various things, right? He is my deliverer. So when I need delivered, that's calling a lawyer is a secondary thing for me. It's not a primary thing. And I have proof and evidence that he is defending me at all times. That I don't even have to fight because he is designed to cause you to believe in it. Do you see? You literally wear white coats so that you will trust them. They are in competition with God. You will be told by supposed to do, I don't know, is God your healer or isn't he? I'm not saying there isn't a place for doctors. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to decide white coat and see God behind him. Or are you depending on the doctor? Or isn't he? He says, and this is such a profoundly loving statement. What he's essentially saying is, I want to serve you. I want to serve you, right? You see very rich people who have their personal doctor, right? He said, I want to be that for you. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? When COVID, my response to it, after I quit coughing and wheezing, finally the church is needed. Finally the church is going to shine, baby. The churches are going to be filled. That's the first thing them idiots did. They said, you must close your church. You know why? Because they knew. They knew that if they find their doctor, they're going to lose business. You think I'm crazy? They knew. Shut your church down. It literally one after the next shut down because I said, these people need Jesus. Many people will be saved. No. All these cowards shut down their churches. When people needed God the most as their healer, you donate. You know, we got to keep the doors open. Closed here because of COVID and things. God, it ticks me off. So, don't you think? A good doctor will prevent you from getting sick. A good doctor will. Does that mean, if somebody gets sick, that they should be healed? No. There are so many things in your life that are making you sick right now. Takes that possibility away. But there is something that needs to be. Did I miss something here? I do believe I did. No, I did. I totally did. Okay, well, here we are. He says them and tested them there in the wilderness. Statute is terms, okay? Terms. A statute is an agreement. It is that the Egyptians did. That's what he's saying. So how do we put God? He gives us the answer right here. It's freaking awesome. Okay? He says, "Do." That's it. Okay? Can you do? Not convinced. Okay, I'll keep going. And you get sick. What is it saying? Something. You can be sick of that. A massive gift from God. Because when you get physically sick, He wants to be your healer completely. And if it means that you, whatever your spirituality, whatever it is, God is willing to navigate whatever it takes to get you to a place of healing. It's just that we have such a different concept of what healing looks like. Isn't that the truth? You know, and we learn it as a child. You know, you get poison ivy. Oh, mom is spraying things on it. Oh my God. I mean, the game plan is let's hurry up and get this thing fixed, right? But what we know, if we're actually honest with ourselves, is it's going to last as long as it's going to last. It's going to last until God's done with it. There are things that you're fun. Those are great. But you know what it means? Probably wasn't God's plan, actually, right? That you got sick in the first place. It wasn't something you needed to go through. You didn't need to go through it, which is why you were healed. If you need to go through it, it's going to last about it, except learn how to worship God through your pain. Right? Singing in the midst of our bitterness, and we draw so near that we can feel His presence, feel Christ all throughout us, even though seriously, He starts rising up. And it's really, really cool. So, let's go through these. I'm taking two. Do well to listen. Okay. Here's the full verse. Peter. Peter says, and we have the prophetic word more fully confirmed, and the morning star rises in your hearts. This is a beautiful. This first of all, that no prophecy of Scripture comes from someone's own interpretation. For no prophecy was ever produced by the will of man, but men spoke from the perfect example. Go to the prophets. Read the Bible. Go by God Himself. You want to listen diligently. See, diligently listening doesn't mean I heard what. That's not diligently listening. Diligently listening means then you're not meditating correctly. And what it means is he says you would do well quenching our thirst. Okay? Lighting that fire. And he's saying until, he says, basically read. Okay? Once you feel the Holy Spirit rise, then you're getting close. That's when you know you're getting close. And you know what? This is what you need to do. You need to learn how to hear with your soul. And you do that, they have depth, they have dimension, they are in another heaven. And when you start hearing the level, but when your heart starts hearing these words, when you start hearing these words, Christ rise, there's nothing more soothing. There's nothing more soothing than to feel the Spirit of God rising within you. You cry out to God and God says nothing. Right? You ever have that? No. You know what the answer is? Do the right thing. Sometimes a test is actually going to start doing the right thing. Right? How do you do the right thing? How do you do the right thing? Everybody knows a golden rule. Do unto others as they do unto you, right? Wrong. Right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Do the right thing. You're going to have opportunity to be dishonest. Don't do it. You're going to be in those moments a great shooter and don't miss. You know, some of us think, oh, well, I can get away with a white lie. No, you're killing yourself, nobody else, right? The third thing is, of that, isn't he? It says, give ear to his commandments. This is listening to the instructions of God. Giving ear to his commandments. Sometimes you'll be... So what you do, and I'll tell you how to do this. Do not try to reason in your mind why God told you, just do it. Just do it. It's never going to make sense. That's why you need to... What sense does it make to throw a tree in water? Do you really think... Israelites are standing there looking like, you're an idiot, Moses? I mean, seriously, put yourself in their position. Side bets, right? Right? This is never going to work. There's no way. There's money on it. Next thing you know, you got 2 million people betting on whether a tree is going to make the water sweet. But the truth is, it never makes sense. What God asks you to do never makes sense. That's why you should never think, but do. Well, I guess what I'm saying is commit before you think. We think we're hearing from God and we're not. We need to talk to others about it. But if you confirm it in your heart, it says to hear his commandment. He says to keep his statutes. To keep all his statutes. Do you know what this is? That you put it in your heart and you lock it away. Here's why. Because sometimes when things get real bad, you can't feel your way through, you can't see your way through, there's nothing left that you can do. You can't process it. It gets muddy, and you know when you're in these situations. And in those moments, there's one thing you can, I know he will come through, right? I know he will not let me down. And but what does it take to do that? That means when you read the Word of God, take it serious. Take it very serious, as if though where you can't see ahead. So, then, where he was running a skid steer with 12 kids. I'm kidding. There were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. Concerning water, they passed the test. And God says, now that you know to paradise, let me deliver you to the place your heart longs for. Okay. See, but paradise comes at a cost. Why? Because paradise starts in your heart. Okay, if you don't have 70 palm trees in your heart, then the 70 palm trees in the middle of the desert mean nothing to you because you're an ungrateful brat. Why? In order to, we have all these crazy prayers, Lord, make me a millionaire. Okay, you want to be a millionaire? Let me take you through let me prepare your heart for it. I'm going to run from that and I don't want anything to do with it. Okay, well watch what you pray for. You pray for something serious, God is going to, before that he is the healer, that he is your lawyer, that he is fill in the blank, whatever you need. He is that person. And say, this is God. God did this. within 3 days again. You need to cement in your heart is so that he can deliver you and free you from the bondage that you're in that is keeping you from seeing him as your healer. Okay? You're in bondage. But when you get sick and you're looking death straight in the face, and then he delivers you, that's when you fully understand God is healer. Okay? So in order to understand who God is, it's going to be difficult. In order to experience life at its fullest and to have those amazing moments that we see on TV, the perfect vacations, the perfect, life, the perfect marriage, the perfect all of these things, easy to get there. But you're going to learn, you're going to get to know that the God that delivers you is the one that you want. So, don't run from bitterness. Instead, that there's not a wasted drop, because you need to experience the fullness of bitterness before you can actually be delivered. Now, there was a man who took the cup, right? He took the bitter cup, and God did not deliver him. Okay? God did not deliver him, and that was Jesus. He asked God to take this cup from before him if there's another way. But God turns his back on Jesus and says, in order for all of these people in this world to be healed, you're going to have to die. You're going to have to suffer. And he took that cup and he drank of it so that God can make our bitterness sweet. And that's why we give him all the glory, praise. And as he rose from the dead and his disciples saw him again, the most bitter experience they ever had became the most sweet thing they ever seen. Huh? So don't run from problems. Run headlong into them and know that God has a plan and he wants to take you to paradise, but it's just not going to be easy. It's just not going to be easy. So the water of Mara was much sweeter. I'm telling you, the worst times of your life, when you need God the most, are going to be the most precious to you, because that run into it.